Did you hear, guys? The economy's booming. Everyone's thriving. Nothing wrong. What could be wrong about the economy right now? The stock market is soaring. Let's get into it.
The stock market has reached a new record high today after the jobs report was released this morning. And the jobs report came in much better than expected. So the jobs report says that the U.S. labor market added 100.
Do you guys see that? The economy has added 147,000 jobs in June. This is incredible. Totally incredible, guys. You will not believe this. That was a terrible Trump impression, but defying slowdown expectations. Incredible, incredible.
147,000 jobs, which defied expectations.
This is all lies. I don't know how they fake these numbers. Completely ridiculous. Don't even take them seriously. The Jerome Powell dude, you kind of blow at your job. But I wanted to be petty right here. Look, Courtney Brown. You know, the Courtney. I've never seen someone's name spelled Courtney. Interesting. Either way, dude, this is all fake. Literally, they probably added no jobs. They probably took away jobs. But they just change up how they, you know, it's so weird. They have these metrics, right? And then they end up just changing the metrics later on. So none of this matters.
So the expectation was that the labor market would slow down and only add 110,000 jobs in the month of June. So it beat expectations. The stock market is loving it, which has propelled it to a new record high. And in today's video, I want to show you how this changes the odds of an interest rate cut. And I also want to show you the highlights of the jobs report. So first, we're going to begin with the report details. For the month of June, 147,000 net jobs were added. And this was a big relief to the market because, as you can clearly see, just
if you take a look back in 2022, man, that looks crazy. That is ridiculous. Yeah, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you guys. There's going to be something huge because something's going on here. I'm assuming a huge stimulus check because I don't think they're going to give jobs back to the American people like that. But they may give a bunch of money to us. I don't know. This system is completely wacky.
take a look. The labor market has been weakening and the downward trend was expected to persist for June. But that didn't happen and it beat market expectations. Now, shifting over to wage growth, it came in at a rate of 3.7%. And I don't know what you make of this, but my opinion is that this is not good because as you can clearly see, it's on a downward trend as well. So the reason why
Yeah, that sounds about right. But it's weird, right? Because I remember, 4 or 5 years ago, $12 an hour was decent. Now it's like $17 is decent. Or you know what I'm saying? It's like the amount of money they're giving people is more, but with inflation and everything that's going on, it really doesn't even make sense. $20 an hour used to be really good years back. Now, that's like nothing. It's like, dude, it's crazy what the world's become, man. But that's why I'm like, me, myself, I'm trying to really personally get myself together. And I advise that to everybody else too. It's not easy, but we got to do it.
say that, I give my opinion is because what we would ideally like to see is the rate of inflation coming down and wage growth either increasing or at least just maintaining, just holding steady to make up for that huge spike in inflation over the past few years. But that is not the case. As the rate of inflation has been decreasing, wage growth has been declining as well. Now, here's the unemployment rate. So this decreased from 4.2% in May to 4.1% in June. So this beat expectations as well. And as you can see from the chart, the unemployment rate remains low. And this is, of course, relatively speaking, and this is a chart for 25 years. And President Trump celebrated the news by posting this on Truth Social. He says that his policies continue to unleash historic growth and prosperity for our workers.
Oh my God, you guys! Oh my, this is all just idiocracy in a nutshell. My goodness. I was gonna say though, do we really believe that any of these guys can fix any of this? It's a broken system. You can't fix it. I think that honestly, I don't know what we can do. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. I'm not freaking on gurus. He wouldn't even know any gurus. But I'm just saying, yeah, this is insane.
Okay, now I want to show you this. It's very interesting. So this is a two-part thing. So for those that are curious about Doge and the cutting of federal government employees, here's the data.
Doge.
A net 7,000 job losses for federal employees in the month of June, okay? So that is a net loss of 66,000 federal jobs in the past 5 months. But again, as I've previously stated, this does not show the full picture because any workers that are receiving severance pay are not included in these figures. And another thing is that there's been lawsuits and court orders that delayed federal job cuts. So essentially, more job cuts at the federal level are expected in the months to come. Okay, now this is the two-part thing. This is where it's interesting. You have to remember that this is just federal government jobs. So I'm stressing that before I show you this. All right, so take a look. This is where the hiring was at in June. State and local governments did the most job creation. So this was followed by healthcare and social assistance, and then leisure and hospitality. If you look at manufacturing, that sector lost 7,000 jobs in the month of June. So what I'm saying is, I guess to manage expectations for future reports is that it's going to be very difficult for state and local governments to sustain this type of strong growth in the months to come. So you have to keep in mind that this jobs report is for the month of June, but the previous month, for the month of May, government jobs shrank by 1,000. And then here in June, you have it at positive 73,000. So is this sustainable? And I would say most likely no. Now, I just want you to understand that this jobs report was so important for interest rate cuts, and I'm going to show you why. It's basically because, well, what the Federal Reserve is saying is that if the labor market weakens, then that's incentive for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates sooner rather than later. So I want to show you Jay Powell, chair of the Federal Reserve, saying that at the most recent congressional hearing.
This dude, man, I swear, yeah, none of this ever makes sense, but I thought a strong, it's weird because it's like a weakening labor market, they're going to cut interest rates, but a strong labor market, I think, was also cause for him to maybe consider a rate cut as well. So I'm unsure. Well, let's just hear what he says, even though he's not going to say anything. Like, I'm going to click this, and he's literally just going to spew garbage.
Do you believe that we are in a position where we may be able to cut rates in July?
So I would say this. I think if it turns out that inflation pressures do remain contained, then we will get to a place where we cut rates sooner rather than later. But I wouldn't want to point to a particular meeting. I don't think we need to be in any rush because the economy is still strong. The labor market is strong. If we were to see the labor market, meaningfully weaken in a way that was concerning, that would matter for that decision.
Now, I want to show you this last video clip of Jay Powell at the ECB conference just a few days ago.
BS.
He's saying that he's going to be monitoring the data, the labor market data, which is, of course, going to influence his decision on when to cut interest rates. And then after that, I'm going to show you the new odds, the updated probabilities of when the interest rate cut is going to happen. So please take a look.
A solid majority of FOMC participants do expect that it will become appropriate later this year to begin to reduce rates again. And so, that will depend, though, as Christine just mentioned, on the incoming data. We'll be monitoring particularly what does show up in terms of inflation or what does not show up, and also carefully watching the labor market.
Why do we have to listen to these people, right? Like, nothing they ever say makes sense. I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks this, but literally nothing that comes out of this dude's mouth is like, I understand he's talking about the spike of inflation and whatnot and all that crap. But I'm not gonna lie, I kind of agree with Trump. Like, dude, just lower the rates, and if inflation spikes, man, or do what you got to do, but you can always raise them again or whatever.
We watch very carefully for signs of unexpected weakness. we see a gradual cooling, but we don't really see that yet. So those are the things we'll be watching. But as I mentioned, a majority of us do feel it will be appropriate in the remaining 4 meetings of the year to begin to reduce rates again.
Okay, so as you can clearly see, this jobs report was so important to when the interest rate cut is going to happen. Before today's jobs report, there was a 26.4% chance that the Federal Reserve would cut interest rates at their next meeting on July 30th. So this is according to the CME Fed Watch tool. After today's report, the odds of an interest rate cut on July 30th have now fallen from 26.4% to 4.7%. Because the labor market did not weaken, then why should the Federal Reserve be incentivized to cut interest rates? Because they don't have to rescue the labor markets. Therefore, after such a strong jobs report, the market expectation is a solid no cut in July. Now, I want you to take a look at this. The next meeting after July.
I'm so tired of this. It is so boring to me. We gotta fire that guy. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
July is going to be on September 17th. Before the jobs report was released, there was a 96% chance that the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates by that meeting in September. After today's strong report, the odds of a rate cut by September have now fallen from a 96% chance of cutting to now 71.4%. Therefore, the odds are still in favor of a rate cut by that meeting. But if we're talking about September, I mean, there's still going to be 2 months of data that can significantly change these odds, of course. So if you're thinking, well, if the odds of a rate cut have fallen, and they've fallen pretty substantially, then shouldn't that be bad for the stock markets? And the answer is yes, that is bad. However, the expectation before this report was that they're going to cut interest rates in September. And that still remains the expectation. So even though the odds have fallen, I guess it wasn't enough to phase the markets. And I want to bring this to your attention. This is the most recent forecast by the Federal Reserve. This is known as their Summary of Economic Projections, or their SEP.
This is what I was also gonna say too. I think the reason why the stock market and Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market are not going to dump too much more than this is because they don't want people getting into it. They don't want people buying the stock market. They don't want people buying crypto, free Bitcoin in the description. But they don't want you buying any assets. So they're going to lower the price just enough to where people are like, I don't know, man. It's going to dump or something. I personally don't think it's going to dump anymore because they've already dumped the market insanely. So for them to dump it again, it would be an opportunity for regular people to buy in. And they're not going to let that happen.
So the Federal Reserve projected in March and in June that they would cut interest rates 2 times this year in 2025. So here are the remaining meetings for the Federal Reserve: July, September, October, and December. Now you got to think about it. If they cut interest rates in September, and if they stick to their projections, that means that they're going to cut interest rates again in either October or December. So that would be 2 cuts in 3 meetings, which would be, huge, like favorable, very favorable for the stock markets. However, as a disclaimer, they can always revise their projections, which they're actually going to give an updated one in September. However, their June projection did not change from March. All right, so that is the situation. Please let me know what you think. I look forward to hearing your comments. Please subscribe.
I don't know what I think. I think a lot of this stuff is rigged. I think they're just waiting for something specific. And then they'll cut rates. It's like they could do all this, right? And in the July meeting, they could be like, you know what? After long consideration, we are actually in favor of cutting interest rates for 1%. And then the market will go crazy, right? So it's like you never really know. All these predictions and stuff, it just, I don't know, man. But it's all a scam. I'm sitting here trying to analyze some stuff that is a scam. So, there you have it. Peace.